right, welcome to another Ask Octopus, where the Octopus customer success team will answer your interesting questions. Today I've got Derek, Bob, and Sean with me. How are you guys?
Good,
Doing good.
Ryan.
How are you doing?
You're pretty good.
I'm great. I've got a interesting question. This one was kind of a head scratcher for me, so interesting to see your guys' take on it. It's how can I deploy a series of incremental changes? So this is the scenario. Customer had, and what would be my incremental changes is their deployment package doesn't contain the entire application. It only contains the files that were changed. So a caveat here, I don't recommend that approach. It's not something I would choose personally. I would always choose to have the full application in the package, but there are certain reasons why some people would choose to do this. The person I was talking to, they weren't in charge of creating the packages, and it was out of their hands. It was kind of like they didn't have, this is the scenario they're working with that they can't change. But some people, they care about package size, so they don't want to, if their entire application is, many megs, they don't want to deploy that or even maybe store those packages somewhere. They want to save disk space. With Octopus, with delta compression during the transfers, that's probably less of an issue for the deployment part. But that could be one scenario. But is this a common thing? Have you seen this in your careers, like deploying incremental changes versus a full change?
I've had it before, but it was a long time ago. It was a long time ago. It was like in website development, it would like certain packages would be built, but not in a long time.
Yeah, and that was like another thing that I've seen come up in trying to kind of like research this and understand it a little bit more is sometimes maybe your application code, you deploy the full, like the binaries and the executables every time, but if you have static assets like images or like CSS files, maybe those are changed incrementally and have small, like if because you don't want to like deploy 100 images every time if only one of them changed.
I've had it with it tends to have been like CMSs where you're just basically putting that on top over the top of it. But yeah, it's been a while since I've done that approach. Now it's build the full thing, etc.
Yeah, so I had a couple ideas of how you could do this. My first go-to would be probably to script it. So the scenario is, okay, we've deployed maybe a handful of incremental changes to dev. In my example, I use 6, but it could be 5, it could be 10, it could be 50. And we want to take everything that's in dev and deploy it to test, and then take all of those changes and then deploy them in production. So to me, like go-to would be scripted out, like the order that everything needs to go in, just write a script to go through and set up a series of deployments. And I think that, I went to the wrong thing, sorry about that. If you are comfortable scripting and using the API, that's a good solution. But and there's also some reasons why you may want to do everything through Octopus, through the UI, and not necessarily have it as a separate process that maybe lives on your machine or that somebody would have to run from the command line. So this was a scenario I came up with the deploy a release step. So the idea is we have this payroll site. It's had, and you see I've already run it a few times, so I don't have a clean demo for this, but we've got 6 releases for this payroll site, which we don't see all of them on here, but so we want to take these 6 releases and now move them all to test at the same time in order. So I created a payroll site rollup project, which really only consists of 6 deploy a release steps. So it's deploying the same, and it's the same release every time, or the same project every time, but a different version. So again, this probably isn't an approach I would use personally, but given the scenario and the constraints, I thought it wasn't like an impossible thing to do. It seemed like it would work in this case and does the job, and it does it pretty well. So I wanted to share it. So we're going to choose to deploy the payroll site, and really I just set it up 6 times so that when we create a release, you can go in and choose the version. So by default, it's going to choose the latest, but you could go in and choose which versions you want to run and in which order. So say maybe one of those was a bad release, maybe 4 was, you don't want to deploy that one, or for some reason you need to change the order of them. It's all handled. When we save this and we deploy it to test, it's just going to run through those steps, and actually probably more fun to watch it from the dashboard, because what we'll see is as this release number 4 of the rollup runs, it's just going to run through, it's going to apply version 1. When that's done, it's going to apply version 2, and so on.
It's a much more eloquent solution than I would have done in the past. So yeah, that's quite a nice actually set up. So
the only downside is I could see was if you have less than or more than 6 changes.
Yeah, so this is kind of a one-off thing. It wouldn't be, I wouldn't do this. If you're constantly doing roll-ups, I think this was kind of like a once a quarter kind of thing. It's
okay.
At the end of a project. Yeah, I wouldn't do this like on a weekly case. I also probably wouldn't do it if I had a lot of changes, because that's a lot of going in and like cloning the step, changing the name. I would definitely, if you had more than a handful, probably more than 5 or 6, I would look into scripting, using the API and scripting that as an option. But like I said, this does have the benefit of it's all through the interface. You can see what's happening, how it's working. No scripting or API knowledge required.
Yeah, I think I like that solution if it's like a once a quarter thing where you do it infrequently. I think that I like that a lot.
Yeah, it was an interesting problem. Like I said, me personally, I would try to avoid the incremental packages if possible. But if you're in this scenario, if this is something that is coming up that you have to handle, then this is a potential way to do it. Like I said, if it's not something that's too often and you're not rolling up like 50 changes all at once.
I imagine in this case, ideally, you're probably not changing I imagine, like you said, it's for static content. So it's like CSS files, or if it's like image files, you're probably not changing that all the time. It's probably very infrequent at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. We had also discussed some other solutions, like could you potentially have a process that combines all of the packages? So if you knew I deployed these 6 incremental packages, could you extract them all and then create a super package and do that? That's, that could be a way to do it, but I don't like that, because then you're not really deploying. You're not deploying the same thing from dev to test. It's not the same deployment. It's not the same package. There's room for error there. So, but that would be another option to look at if this scenario comes up for you. But that is it. I don't know. Any other like feedback, ideas on that scenario or that approach?
I'd say if it's not something if it's something like you said, if it happens quite often, then you're scripting it out. It's going to save you so much more time in the end.
Yeah, scripting it out, getting a pretty robust script, and just being able to plug in what versions to release and in what order would be, really nice.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, that was it for me and my question in that scenario. So we will end today's episode. But if you have an interesting question, you can submit it at hello.octopus.com/askoctopus. We have a form there you can fill out to send us a question. If you have a question about your projects or your usage, or you're running into a issue that you don't know how to solve, please email support@octopus.com so that we can get you straightened out. And also, if it's a interesting scenario, you may see it on a future episode. And please join us on Slack. We have a great community at octopus.com/Slack. I'd love to have you be part of it. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and thanks Derek, Bob, and Sean for joining me today. I will chat with you guys later.
See you later.
See you later.
Cheerio.